You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
J.T. Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mott,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Charlene Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is
Laura Benedict.
the Renegade Star Series, books 1 through 3 by J.N. Chaney. Jace Hughes is a renegade. That means taking almost any job that comes his way, no matter the situation. So long as he can keep his ship floating, he's free to live the life he wants. But that all changes when he meets Abigail Pryor, a nun looking for safe passage out of the system. Too bad there's something off about the cargo she's carrying. Jace knows he shouldn't ask too many questions, but when odd sounds start coming from inside the large metal box, he can't help but check it out. Big mistake. The Renegade Star box set includes the first 3 books in the series, 900 plus pages, 300 5-star reviews and counting. Find out why people are so intrigued by this thrilling science fiction epic. You won't believe the twists and turns this series takes, or the secrets that get revealed. The Renegade Star Series by J.N. Chaney. Devin Ford, Recon, the Expansion Series Book 1. Hundreds of years in Earth's future sees the United Global Territories striving to colonize the Moon and Mars. The discovery of a clean energy source ended the world's reliance on fossil fuels overnight, and years after the resulting wars, a new discovery puts the tenuous world peace at risk, that of faster-than-light travel. With humanity on the verge of traveling to new solar systems and all the humanitarian and scientific possibilities involved, a discovery by the reconnaissance team turns everything upside down. Join the small team of the reconnaissance mission who fight friend and foe to complete their mission objectives, no matter where it leads them or what the personal cost. Devin Ford, Recon, the Expansion Series Book 1. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have Laura Benedict on the show with me today. Laura has a fantastic new book out that's been out for just under a week when you're hearing this, and it's called The Stranger Inside, and this is a fantastic thriller. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Oh, thank you, Hank. I'm so glad to be here today.
I am so glad to have you. I love the new book, and I can't wait to talk about it. But before we do all that, we begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
Oh, that's such a great question. Can I say it's complicated?
Of course, most are, and sometimes it's a different story for writer and storyteller.
Oh, sure. Well, I grew up in a family of, not official storytellers, but, I used to hang around the dining room table in the evenings, particularly when my mom and her mother and sister and sometimes friends would play cards or just sit around and drink Coke and have, smoke cigarettes and talk. And that is just really where I love to hear the stories that they told about other families and about other people. And, I just kind of grew up with that. So that was sort of a natural part of me. But, I didn't think, I read so much, but I never imagined that I could be a writer. I came from a very, working class family, and I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And nobody ever said, well, you could write these stories down. And I was kind of too shy to do it, which I know sounds strange, but I was a little afraid of that. And so I really thought I just wanted to be around books. So I thought I would be a librarian. And,
makes sense.
Yeah, I know, right? But then I realized that I had to do a lot of, research and be good with numbers. And
yeah, that's not something you think about. You think of a librarian as kind of a zookeeper for books. Not that there's math and stuff involved.
Exactly. And kind of a herder of children and people, right?
Exactly.
And so I strangely, I went into business, and I was working for a sales promotion company, and I was this was in my early 20s, and I was buying copywriting, for sales promotion programs and brochures and things, and I was like, oh, I could do this. And so I started doing a little copywriting, except it kept getting fanciful and more and more. So I decided I was going to have to go take a writing class. So I went back to school and took a couple writing classes, and then I just started. So it was after college and everything.
Nice. So were there any adults in your life when you were younger that recognized that there was maybe a storytelling desire, or that maybe you had that gift and offered any encouragement?
No. That's the short answer. That's totally the short answer. I used to draw a lot.
Yeah.
And really primarily copying things, and my aunt thought that was really cool. But no.
Gotcha.
It really wasn't.
What were some of the things that you loved to read? What were some of those formational stories or series that have had a lasting impact on you?
Well, honestly, I remember little golden books. The little the books with the the counting kittens that playing with the little balls. That was I remember little golden books because those were really my first books that my mother shared with me.
Sure.
And someone gave me a book called Laurie's Yellow Curtains. And because I was called Laurie when I was little, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever to have my name on a book. So there you go. I had a book really early, I guess, and I just didn't know it. But I read whatever we were reading in school, of course. But like The Witch of Blackbird Pond and Nancy Drew. Oh my gosh, I was mad for Nancy Drew. And even though when I started writing, I didn't know I was going to write mysteries. But Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights. I didn't discover Jane Austen until my 20s, and I'm very sad I didn't. But then I got really hooked on Stephen King, anything scary, Stephen King, Peter Straub, and later Dean Koontz. But I really liked things scary, and from my parents' bookshelves, I picked up a little Sidney Sheldon.
Oh yeah,
and Shakespeare, oddly enough. So my parents had very varied reading taste. So those are some of the early things.
When did you discover Stephen King and Poe and kind of the darker side of literature?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Poe, because even before Stephen King, my grandfather gave me a collection of Sherlock Holmes stories and classic books, with Poe. So definitely, I was probably 11 or 12 when I started reading that stuff, and Stephen King very quickly after.
So what was it about those kinds of stories that kind of lit up your imagination?
I think being a somewhat shy and gloomy teenager, and those, there are a lot of, shy and gloomy people in, in Stephen King stories. And, I love the mystery. I always loved, for whatever reason, I was always the kid who wanted to watch Fright Night, the scary B movies, with the guy, the host shining the flashlight in the dark over his face so he would look scary. I lived for those moments. I don't know. I just, I found them exciting in a way I didn't find books like, like Anne of Green Gables very interesting.
Well, what I find interesting is that, and I love to ask people about their early influences and what those formative kind of stories and things are, because invariably those things come back around in our own writing, and not that we're wearing our influences on our sleeve or anything like that, but just that these things kind of become part of who we are, and then we put our own spin and take on things. And I love that Jane Eyre, as well as Stephen King, had great impact, because I can see those in the, especially in your new book, where, we've got this, this great interpersonal drama, mixed in with, a kind of a frightening story. And I love to see how those things merge and meld and kind of come out in new and exciting ways.
Well, honestly, I really hadn't even thought of that, but, which sounds strange, I know, but yeah, when I first started writing, I didn't start writing, when I was going to, classes, I was not writing those sorts of stories. I thought I had to kind of figure out what literary fiction was and do that. I was sort of under this illusion that, mystery writing wasn't real writing. And wow, I wish I had started way earlier writing mysteries.
That happens to so many of us. Like, popular genre fiction, is popular for a reason. Lots of people read it. And for some reason, this stigma of serious literature, hangs over, a lot of new writers. And I hate that. I mean, I understand it, because a lot of us go through that. But what was it for you that helped you break that mold and realize that you could tell serious stories, that have something to say, but be entertaining as well?
Well, I married a writer, and his name is Pinckney Benedict, and he has all the literary cred. He studied with Joyce Carol Oates at Princeton. He went to the Iowa Writers Workshop, and he teaches creative writing in an MFA program. So he when he was a younger teacher, he had to build up to the whole professor thing. But, I saw from him, what sort of MFA programs were teaching. And he actually had gotten very frustrated with it, because, you get students in, and the things that they're reading are not Richard Ford. They're different. They're reading popular books. A lot of his students 10 years ago were coming in, and they were weaned on Harry Potter and fantasy and, Lord of the Rings and that sort of thing. And so he started taking the line that, we're going to kind of meet people where they are, and actually teach them to write. So, and also I just did not find that kind of writing interesting, even though I tried. And, when I was in my early 40s, actually in 2001, I had written a story for, Ellery Queen magazine, just sort of written my first mystery story, or it was kind of more of a suspense story, and they published it. But I didn't think of going to write a book like that for several years after. And I just decided, I wasn't going to try, and this sounds funny, I didn't want to try to compete with my husband. Because, he teaches this stuff every day. And I thought, I have to do, something that's interesting to me. And so I just gave myself a year. I said, I'm going to write a mystery story. And I kind of wanted to do a ghost story because, I like supernatural stories. And I gave myself 2 rules, and the rules were, something has to happen at the end of every chapter to make the person want to go to the next chapter, and in fact on the page, and that it could happen in a sexy supernatural version of the soap opera Days of Our Lives. So I know, I bet you've never had that before.
On your website, in your bio, you start with a quote, you don't look like a person who writes scary stories. And then you say, I hear these words often. I have a lot of friends, in the writing community who write darker, scary, literature, sometimes violent, sometimes, just really disturbing. And they are the sweetest, nicest people, in real life. And I think that, that really does surprise a lot of people that, how can such, dark and scary things come from someone who's such a beautiful person, inside and out. And, what do you say to people when they ask you those things?
Well, that has kind of evolved over the years. I don't think we can ever know what's inside a person's head, ever. You look at Ted Bundy, and Ted Bundy was an attractive guy, and friendly, but he was the psychopath. I could be a psychopath. You don't know.
I don't know, but
but also it's kind of come to me lately that that is a question that is often asked of women writers. Because people don't really expect women writers to write challenging, scary stuff, and I think that's just it's just a fact of sort of literary history. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm actually pretty dark, I won't say I've worked through a lot of my darkness through my work. Perhaps I have. But I love serial killer stories. I like to read about that sort of thing. And I'm a very paranoid person. That's where, you look at the stranger inside, and my paranoia is off the charts there.
Well, do you think, and I've had a theory and I've asked some people, about this. Do you think that we as readers and as writers, but do you think we as readers love those kinds of stories because it allows us to kind of face our fears and to take the things that really do upset us and we worry about and allow us to, kind of have a face-to-face look, without actually being in danger?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. I know that's true for me as a reader. And as a writer, people who write good books, are always able to find, something in those books speaks on an elemental level to the reader. And there really is there are a few elemental things, love, fear, hate, and we can see those things in the books we're reading. And so, I definitely find that as a reader. And so I kind of work out I put these situations forward that frighten me and hope that they will frighten other people.
Yeah,
that's my job.
Sure. When you decided to pursue the thing that you were really passionate about and said, I'm going to write what I want to write. What was the first book that you wrote, that got attention?
Well, actually my debut, it depends on what kind of attention. When I submitted Isabella Moon, my first novel, I got a 2-book deal, a very generous 2-book deal with Ballantine. And so that financial recognition was huge. And, it was such a trip to go out and be, not recognized. No writer is ever recognized, really, unless you're among other writers or fans, which I adore, at conferences and things. So that kind of attention was a lot of fun and very daunting. So I'm this is my 6th, 7th, this is my 8th book. And with each one, it changes a little bit. This book has been a lot of fun because, with social media where it is right now and bookstagrammers, I have such great fun on Instagram. finding and discovering people who love books. And that sort of community. That Facebook really didn't ever do that, but I think with the images and pictures of books and covers, and that is so fun. I enjoy interacting with people there so much.
Yeah, I say all the time that Facebook is the place you go to scream at each other, and Instagram's where all the good vibes are, and everybody's just happy about books and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. So the first book that was published, which one was that?
That was called Isabella Moon.
Isabella Moon. What was the idea for that book that you think allowed that one to kind of launch your career? What was special about that book to you?
Well, let me tell you where the book came from.
Okay.
There was Isabella Moon is about a woman who is running away from, you don't know at the beginning, but she's running away from an abusive husband, and she comes to Kentucky, and she doesn't hide very well, but she's hiding out living in a small town in Kentucky, having a life, and the ghost of a little girl who has been missing for 2 years appears to her. And so she wants to find out, about the little girl and, what happened to her. And that's the story. And she does. And, I had my daughter is now 26, but, my daughter was probably, she was 6 maybe when I started writing that book. No, maybe a little later. Anyway, I'd written 2 books that I didn't publish. And, when she was born, there was a girl named Polly Klaas. And I don't know if you remember the Polly Klaas incident in California. Right. And that struck me so deeply as a mother. And the idea of losing a child was just, my early fears with my writing when I had children is losing children, something happening to my children, not being able to take care of them, or something happening to them. And so that book really, played on that fear a lot.
Gotcha.
And so I had to write that book. And that was where that was the first time I'd written a book that had real energy in it.
And the real energy, do you think that's because it was the story was fueled by something that was so close to your heart? Absolutely.
Yeah,
it really bleeds out on the page, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And you can tell in a book, you can tell when a book has good energy. There are books that are just kind of entertaining, but, and for the, I don't know what effect it had on other people. That book was actually very polarizing, among people who reviewed it, and still is, because they didn't like the ending. So I've adjusted my endings in fact, I changed it when I got the rights back and I put it up, as an ebook. I actually changed the ending a little bit because I kind of grew. I know that sort of, changed the ending of your book. I just tweaked it enough to let readers be a little more satisfied because I felt like I hadn't been fair to them.
Oh, that's such a tough decision, as a writer. And I think you said matured there for a second, but then you kind of pulled back from that. But, I do think that as writers, we change, over time. Mm-hmm. And there's this weird thing about books when you publish them, they're kind of there forever. And it's a snapshot in time of where the writer is and, maybe where, the reading audience's sentiments are. It's a really unique thing. And we really don't like it when people change things. But I think every writer you talk to, if you say, would you go back and do, so-and-so differently? Almost all of them would say, yeah, I think I would. Sure. That had to be a tough decision to make. It is a tough decision. And I think that what it came out of for me was respect for the reader.
I have gained a lot more respect for the reader over the years, and tried to keep in mind, sometimes that even I, as a reader, I want to be surprised, but I don't want to be taken out of the story surprised. And I think that's one of the things that I see in young writers who, believe sort of in the literary fantasy, that they should be able to write anything that they want to write and people have to like it. And that's just not true. I mean, there's a real difference between being self-indulgent and being a revolutionary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, so many young writers will think, well, I'm going to do this and it's really different. And it's like, no, they were doing that in the 60s. Sorry. It's like, you're not being revolutionary. Telling the story in second person, that's not revolutionary. There are times when it's appropriate, but this time isn't, for this story, it's not, right? But it's funny that way. But and I think maybe having a respect for a reader is something that also comes with being a commercial writer. I write for money now. And that doesn't change my work so much, but it changed some of the considerations I have when I'm making a big decision in a book.
Missing Wings by Andrea Lumen. Born with an ability the Villady people of Madar believe make her one of the first to be blessed by God, Katrina's destiny unravels when her father is poisoned and her mother steals her into the human world to hide among those who hate her kind. In a near-fatal attempt to return home, Katrina is stripped of her wings. The poison meant to kill her father leaves him in a degenerative state. When her eldest brother discovers she has survived, he orders her to stay in hiding. She must wait, concealed in the human world, until the danger of their father's uncontrolled rages is contained. Grown and adapted to the human world, Katrina encounters one of her kind. The promise of home and the first love leads her into a situation capable of starting war among the Villady. Will a human upbringing, mistakes, and the loss of her abilities bar her from reclaiming her heritage? Will unraveling the mystery of her mother's betrayal lead her family into an even greater danger? Missing Wings by Andrea Lumen. The Locust, Books 1-3 by Ralph Kern. The complete Locust series, an epic tale of mystery, survival, exploration, intrigue, and war. The cruise ship MS Atlantica is lost. On these strange and uncharted seas where even the compass shows the sun rising to the west, Atlantica's passengers and crew must do what it takes to survive. In Unfathomed, Atlantica arrives in a strange new world. Unable to locate land and with no way to contact home, they must find new allies, fend off relentless enemies, and discover the horrifying truth behind the Locusts. The future of humanity will be decided as the fleet confronts the architect of the Locust. Not everyone will survive the desperate final battle. The Locust box set contains all 3 action-packed novels in this best-selling science fiction thriller series, Unfathomed, Expedition, and Osiris. Acclaimed for great characters, thrilling action, technical accuracy, and a compelling sense of mystery. Buy it today. The Complete Locust series by Ralph Kern. That's such a weird thing for people to wrestle with, sometimes, I'm a writer, therefore my artistic decisions lead and guide everything. But, sometimes if you, and you're more than welcome to make all the decisions you want, but if you want people to buy the book, there are certain considerations that you need to, oblige to the reading audience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, it's a weird place for a lot of people. They don't want to compromise, what they feel. Yet at the same time, it doesn't matter how much you do or don't compromise if no one buys the book.
Exactly. And that's, and that's where a really good editor comes in.
Yes.
And, my editor for The Stranger Inside, Emily Giuliano, oh my gosh, I can't say her name. She's going to kill me. Giuliano. There we go. Emily Giuliano. She is a fabulous editor, and she really made me take a look at some things about, in the weave of the story that I was like, oh, okay. And not so much in a, oh, this will please the reader way, but in a make it a better book way. And, so a lot of times an editor will do that for a writer. Will take those self-indulgent moments and say, no, I don't think so.
And a lot of times it's that other person's eyes that lets us realize this is not a grand artistic expression. This is just you having tunnel vision and you just can't see that the story could be better.
Yes. Good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned something, also that when you got the rights back, to Isabella Moon that you, then put it up and published it yourself. This is a really interesting time for writers, because I know that you do have a contract with a publisher for the new book, but you're also, publishing some of your older works on your own. It's a great time to be a hybrid writer, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I kind of went in reasonably early, in 2012. And because, I got my rights back. I have a fabulous agent and she got my rights back very quickly for me. And so the first thing I did was when my third book, Devil's Oven, did not sell, on a contract, I had written it and I liked it. I had it professionally edited. And I just thought, I'm going to write another book to try to sell to a commercial publisher, but I'm going to put this one up myself. And I had a great time and I learned so much doing that. And so then it was easy. It was easy to put up my first two books. So that was 3 books, I had up fairly early. And, so my backlist is up there. And there's so many writers now who started in self-publishing and now are hybrid writers as well. And it's funny. I think a lot of people who were traditionally published, there are a few who really still are just like, no, they're very old school. They don't feel comfortable self-publishing. One, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's
a huge amount of work. I mean, when you see a self-published book, particularly, Amazon kind of makes it look easy. And you can put any kind of, crap you want up there.
Mm-hmm.
There are books up there that just, it's like, people just want to get it out and they don't want to spend time, trying to edit it or get it, they just put it up there. But if you do it right, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, and there were some very heated discussions, a couple of years ago about,
Mm-hmm.
which side was better and all of that stuff. And I hope a lot of that has settled down and we realize that it's really a great time for authors right now because authors have choices. And one project is perfect for a big 5 publisher. Another project is perfect for self-publishing. And there are a lot of considerations to take in and we all need each other if we would just calm down a little bit and know that authors are empowered. That's the important thing is authors are empowered.
Well, they are. And, the short story market is better than it used to be.
Yeah.
And a lot more genre writers are getting into writing short stories, and being in anthologies. And I have enjoyed doing that. And, but no big 5 publisher is going to take an anthology of my short stories. I do not think so. You can get in an anthology with other popular writers. That works. But, right now I'm in process of doing covers for all of my short stories because that's a big part of my writing too. And so the ones I get the rights back to are, they're going to go up and people can read my work, read those stories individually. And I may collect them, I may not.
I love it. I love that you write short stories too. I'm a big Ray Bradbury fan and, he absolutely advocated, for, new writers to write lots of short stories until you get it right. Getting
it right.
Well, I think he said, write a short story every week for a year. And, by the end of the year, it's impossible to have not written something good,
That's great.
Yeah. So is your writing process for short fiction different from long fiction? Do you approach them differently? And when you begin something, do you know that it's going to be short or, feature length?
Now I know if it's going to be short or feature length. I didn't used to. I used to write incredibly long short stories. And, they would almost turn into novellas. And that is where sort of MFA training would have come in handy, because you learn how to write a short story, because short stories are very different from novels. They happen in, one place, generally speaking. I mean, you can have a short story that goes around, but, they kind of say one thing. And so I really had to practice with short stories. And the way I learned was reading lots of short stories to learn that form, because I'd read tons and tons of novels, but I hadn't read a lot of short stories. So when I write a short story, I try to keep the idea small. That it's I kind of take a scene and build on that scene, which I actually do with a novel too. But for me, it's a matter of restraint with a short story. I just constantly have to kind of pull it back and stay focused on that central idea. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the new book. The Stranger Inside is out now. We mentioned earlier it's been out for about a week now. I got this book a couple of months ago, I believe, and I love suspense thrillers, and which is kind of weird because I don't usually write in those genres, but I really love those kinds of books, and I love to kind of be on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I love to see the darker inner workings of people's minds, I guess. And so when I got this book, it's like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. And, I kind of fell down the rabbit hole, with this book. Tell us about Kimber Hannon and how do we meet her?
Oh, when the book opens, how we meet her?
Yes. Tell us about the story. How does the story start to unfold, and what do we learn about her and the situation?
Well,
for the folks that have not read the book yet.
Sure. The absolute first opening of the book is a scene in which a young woman is dying, and her name is Michelle, and we eventually find out who Michelle is, and it's no big secret. It turns out to be Kimber's sister, and that's a scene that has happened in the past that we will lead up to in the book. But sort of the big impact scene, the opening, is Kimber coming home to her St. Louis house, and she's been on a 4-day retreat, kind of at Lake of the Ozarks. She's been laid back, and she comes home to her house, and it's approaching evening, and she puts her key in the lock of her front door, and it doesn't work. And so she tries key after key after key, it feels to me like one of those dream moments, where like you're trying to do something that is supposed to work, but it just won't work. and so she's trying to put her key in the lock, and she realizes it doesn't work. And so she goes to the back of the house, and it doesn't work. And there's a strange bike on her porch, and it doesn't look like her bike. And she realizes, she looks inside, and the kitchen light is on, but she sees a shadow, and she realizes there's somebody in her house, and that the lock's on her house. So she essentially doesn't live here anymore. She can't get in her house. So that's how we meet Kimber. And so she's pretty ticked.
Yeah. Well, and then we start to learn about this intruder and his motives. And this is such a great twist on this kind of story, where we're used to a story about someone is home, there's someone else in the house, and it's kind of this lots of stories have been set up like that, where it's kind of this cat and mouse game, and we're fearing for her safety, and she has to stay one step ahead. But this person is just very upfront and he has completely different motivations. And I think the idea that he's holding something over her, and that he is threatening to expose things she doesn't want exposed. I think that is a different kind of deep fear, that we all have things that we would love to just stay in the past and stay, us not to have to deal with things again. And that's a completely different kind of psychological trauma, other than someone hiding in the shadows with a knife. What was the idea behind this kind of, scare and this sort of, trauma that she's trying to avoid?
Well, I couldn't just have somebody, an actual stranger being in her house, right? Because that is a whole different book, that's because kind of part of the ideas, come from dreams I've had about being in my house and somebody trying to get in. In fact, that was a huge thing. But really stories come from the best mysteries. The mysteries that I love the most are, and who was it that, maybe it was Agatha Christie or maybe it was Louise Penny. I'm a big Louise Penny fan. That, murders have their origins deep in the past. And I have found that's primarily true, not necessarily in real life, but in really good fiction, that the story, the murder is front and center, or the crime is front and center, but it has very deep roots. And I like my stories to have very deep roots. And I think that's something that has really come along for me as I've written books along, that this is sort of my ultimate deep root story, that the roots are in the past, and she has sort of bought the trouble that she's having right now, that it's a little karmic.
Right. When you're dealing with a story, and I'm like you, I like stories where the danger is up front and we're starting to uncover the deep roots, where it's not necessarily so much a whodunit as a why done it.
Exactly.
And, how do you keep the tension when there's such a huge payoff in the beginning? And then there are other payoffs in the book, because we keep reading, trying to get to those deep roots. How do you maintain that tension with a story that's shaped like this?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is decide where the best place is to start the story. And, I could have started it many different places. I could have started it much earlier. But the impact is, because if you look at a character's life, okay, you look at Kimber's life, I could start the story anywhere. I could have started the story, after she calls the police, right? I don't want to give away too much, but there are other points where I could have started the story. And in a thriller, you want to grab the reader. That's what you have to do with the thriller. You don't have the luxury of, a book that you kind of ease into it. And so you have to start out with a scene with a really big impact. And then keeping the tension is part of that tension, for me, is brought with the information from the past, right? Because you can have physical threats, you can have, oh my God, she's locked out of her house, but the real story is how did she get here? And what has she done to the people around her? And so I take sort of the person that she is, that you see right then, and kind of open up and to show you, that her life, is not particularly, blue ribbon. It's not particularly pretty. She is not going to win any Miss Congeniality awards. And so, but it's. I feel like I'm not addressing it well. I mean, I think it's anything bringing tension to each scene that the character has something to lose in every scene. And that's sort of lesson 2 in a thriller, open it up with a big bang, and then keep the surprises going. Like I said, with my first book, I want to give you a reason to turn the pages. And so I have to make up stuff that you're going to like and be surprised by. And so that's the fun of it, is trying to find that tension to keep the reader. And my books tend to be very plotty because I have a very high tolerance for plot. I want my book to be plotty.
Right.
I want lots going on.
I think that's great advice for writers in all genres, is to make sure your main character has something to lose in every scene.
Yep.
I was talking to my kids a while back. We were talking about story, and I said, make a character that people love, and then torture them, in every scene. And that's what people want to root for them, and I think that's great advice, not just for thrillers, but make sure that we're rooting for someone and they have something to lose.
Well, that's something that talking about rooting, that's a great rule, but I really kind of broke it in a way in this book. I had to tread a very fine line, because I'll be upfront. As I said, Kimber is not particularly likable or admirable. Some people have read the book and said, oh, I just couldn't, handle how awful she was. But they, are compelled to read the story. And, Kimber does change. You have to have your protagonist change.
Yeah.
I'll give a clue. She doesn't really get worse. It's okay. So she's not a character necessarily that you're going to root for right off. But there are other characters in the book, and so finding that balance for me, it was tough to make a character, likable enough that you want to keep reading about her, but to keep her real. And that's something that's really hard to decide how real is your character going to be, because we all know awful people.
Yes, we do.
They often do not have redeeming qualities that we can see.
Yeah, sadly so.
And so, Kimber does have some redeeming qualities, but it's one of my role models for that is Patricia Highsmith's books, like Tom Ripley. And like in The Talented Mr. Ripley. And
right.
Tom Ripley is not a likable guy, but, she writes the heck out of those. She wrote the heck out of those stories.
Well, and there's something that we love about broken characters, as long as they're not evil. They're like, we love a great redemption story. We love to see someone on an upward trajectory. And sometimes it's kind of horrible motivations that get them moving. But sometimes those awful things that we put them through help them to be better people in some weird kind of way, and we're talking about fictional characters, but I think we want to see ourselves in those stories, because we all have something we're not proud of, and we want to be better people. And if we can see our character friends become better people, I think we love that.
Yes.
Yeah. And as writers, we can talk about weird people that don't exist as if they exist. That's part of the fun.
Oh, yes, it is part of the fun. And, and I have to admit, in my life, I feel like I was a little bit Kimber, and not specifically, but,
yeah.
We do things that we regret when we're older. We treat people in certain ways that we regret and often can't go back and say we're sorry.
Right.
But we mature is a really important word. And, so Kimber for me is she's not actually me, but she's sort of the guilty feeling me, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Well, I have a really hard time trusting people that can tell me that they have zero regrets in life. I don't think you're on a growth trajectory if you haven't done something you're not proud of.
Oh, yes.
And that's one of the great things about fiction, that just like we get to safely, deal with scary situations from the safety of our, reading chair, we also kind of get to work through, emotional stuff from the safety of our reading chair that then hopefully affects us on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you've been writing, in this genre, these types of stories for a while now. How do you see, we talked about how publishing has changed and the benefits that's brought to writers and I think to readers as well. How do you feel like, the reading audience, has changed, or have they? Are you writing the same kinds of stories? Do you have the same sorts of ideas that you did when you started? Do you feel like, trends come and go? And if so, as a writer, how do you, meet those changes and stay, kind of at the top of your game?
Oh gosh, that's a really big question.
I know it's,
well, like I said, I started out wanting to write what I wanted to write, like so many writers, so many young, I wasn't even that young, I would say juvenile writers or emerging writers. And the thing I learned is so many things I've learned in the past, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, is that you can't chase a trend. That, once Gone Girl is out, it starts the trend, right? Now, the Gone Girl phenomenon has had a long tail and has changed somewhat. So people are jumping in and it kind of opened up the whole, there was sort of women's suspense drama, and that sort of thing before, but that really blew open the market. And so you see sort of books, The Girl on the Train, and that kind of bought, take that as a model, right? And so you can, if it's going to be a long tail trend, you can kind of chase a trend, but the books that are going to do the best are books that are original, but that people can recognize, that feel familiar to them, but they can recognize as a book that they would be interested in. And that's where it's hard to gauge. I mean, because originality is still important. It's really important because when you have people, I would say in one way readers have changed is even though like sales of hardcover books have fallen, ebooks have risen above the amount that hardcover books fell, right? More people are reading faster. And, here, you work on a book for a year or more, and I know I will read a book that I really love in a day. And it's taken that reader a year to write the book, and they want another book right away. And that's really hard. But staying, like I said, staying original is the real key. I don't think readers ever really change. I think their different stories come into fashion, right? Because classic books, there are some classics that people are just saying, oh, we really don't want to read that anymore. But The Great Gatsby is still taught and still loved, right? And Dickens, people still actually, like Dickens, but is not taught as much. It's not, people like the long books, but, they want a little in doorstop books, they want more fantasy, right? Or they want, great literary style, like something like The Goldfinch, sort of high literary. But I think fashions change, and the publishing is a crapshoot. And, you write a book and it either hits the right time or it doesn't. And that's the painful thing. That's the painful lesson that every writer learns. Every writer writes a book that doesn't hit the stride immediately. And for me, it was my third book. It was like, no, nobody wants to read right now, a kind of ghost story about a magical stripper in Appalachia. But now I say that, and actually I love that book, and so many of my readers love that book. It's actually about a seamstress who lives on a mountain called Devil's Oven. That's the name of the book. And she finds a man's body, dismembered body. She's up searching for mushrooms, and she finds a man's dismembered body badly buried, and sews him back together, and he comes to life. So it's an Appalachian Frankenstein story. So it's not just a magical stripper, but there is a magical stripper involved. So
I just hit the buy now one click on the Kindle app right now. Yeah, that's going to be fantastic.
It's a fun little book. It's very dark, but that was the book the publishers were like, yeah, it's not time for this. And my agent was like, oh, I'm sorry, let's try again. And so at that time, people were, buying a lot of series. So I was like, okay, I want to write a series. But my twist on it was I wrote a series in which the house, a haunted house, was the main character. So it's one thing to follow trends. It's another thing to try to turn them on their heads. And so
right.
that's when you become successful, is if you can be original. And does that even answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yes. Absolutely. I think the lesson is, write what you're passionate about. Have someone, that you trust, a great editor, that can help you, keep those things on track and publish. The audience will be there, or it may have to be on a shelf for a little while, but those things will eventually come back around.
Right. Or, some books just take a while to find their audience.
Exactly.
And the problem is with commercial publishing, they don't have that luxury anymore. And that really changed around 2006, 2007, which is when I came into it. Before then, and before the advent of ebooks, publishers would bring a writer along, right?
Yes.
And so your first couple books, maybe 2, even 3 books, they invested in them, but not too heavily, but they kept you at a book a year, and then you would have a breakout book. And
right.
I would say The Stranger Inside is my breakout book. And that's after 8 books and 3 publishers.
Wow. And it is a fantastic book, and it's a breakout book for a reason. I highly recommend this book. If you love, a great tale that keeps you guessing the whole time and keeps the stakes high, this book is that book. Laura, if people are just learning about you and want to know more about all the great work you're doing and dig into your back catalog and all that good stuff, where can they find you online?
They can find me at laurabenedict.com. And I am also, I have a newsletter, I have a blog, subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get all the latest news, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to some extent, but I get tired of Twitter because of the politics. I have no patience for that.
Yeah, that's screaming into the void. It's it's a little tiring. Yeah. Laura, we're going to send everybody to see you and to pick up their copy of The Stranger Inside. I've had so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Oh, this has been great. It's been a lot of fun. And your questions, thank you. You just inspired me to chat.
Thanks for tuning in to Author Stories. Find all the archives at hankgarner.com. Now, stay tuned for a special audiobook clip from Richard Gleaves, the Jason Crane series.
They made instant coffee and laid blankets over a pile of hay. He helped Kate pull off her boots. She volunteered for first watch, but Jason couldn't sleep. "Talk to me?" he whispered. Kate sipped her coffee. She sat silhouetted against the soft navy sky. A field of stars hung above her. The constellations peered in through the windows and slats. How about a story? Sure. My mom used to tell this one. It's the legend of the Star Maidens. He watched her words as she spoke, her story illustrated by puffs of vapor that mixed with the steam of her coffee. Long ago, a Mohican brave became lost in this valley. He'd followed a red deer deep into the woods, but the deer had vanished, and as twilight fell, he lost his way. He searched the heavens. He saw a bright star and followed it. It shone upon a clearing in the woods. Spook Rock lay at the center, emanating magic. And in the starlight, he discovered the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He discovered a star maiden. She was dancing with her sisters, and all 7 were naked. Oh, really? Jason whispered. 7 naked star maidens? Shh. Why do these things never happen to me? The brave decided he must take the star maiden for his wife, so he seized her and threw her over his shoulder, and she loved him for his courage. They married and had a son. Then what? Then it gets sad. The star maiden missed her home. She gazed at the sky every night. She loved her husband and her baby very much, but she missed her sisters, and she especially missed the dancing. So she snuck away one night and returned to the sacred rock, and she begged her sisters, please appear to me for one last dance. They came to her and took her into the sky. Kate's silhouette swayed. One last dance. It was wonderful. And when the dance was finished, they sent her back to Earth. She thought that she'd been away for only a little while. But that one dance had taken many, many years. She ran back to her husband, back to her baby, but they were gone. Her home was empty. The hunter had stopped waiting for her. He'd given up hope that she would return. He'd taken their child and had left with his tribe. One last dance had cost her everything, and she had no home at all. Jason could sense something roiling inside Kate, some brew of feelings that the story had stirred. He wanted to leap up, to grab her and carry her off, his star maiden and wife. She climbed up to Spook Rock. She heard no music, only wind. She died there of her grief. She dwindled and lost her star form. She became a will-o'-the-wisp, fluttering between the trees. And see that constellation? The Pleiades. Those are her 7 sisters, watching down from heaven. And, to this day, if a girl has lost her true love, she can go to Spook Rock and dance, and the star maidens will bless her. They'll grant her one wish, any wish at all, except one. They can't make her true love return.